Bag, a real-life comedy podcast designed to lighten you up, make you laugh, and get you off your ass. Now that's Kristen being Kristen. Are you freaking kidding me? Start the show.
What's up, everyone? It is Kristen, and this is Chick in the Bag Podcast, episode 7. I have Samantha Buckley-Hugessen here tonight. Yes, she's going to be joining us. She's an author and a coach, and she's my type of girl. So, Samantha, welcome to the show.
Oh, Kristen, thank you so much for having me.
Yay. Well, I'm really excited to talk to you. I really feel like you and I have a very similar mindset in a lot of ways. We're both kind of like those street smart girls that kind of like no bullshit, very direct. I know that we both really want to help people get unstuck and be the best person they can live and live their life that they love. So I am really excited to hear a lot of your backstory and some of your tips for people. And I'm hoping that we can help a lot of people. It is now March, right? So a lot of people are ready to get going. So maybe they'll get some tips from you and we'll get them started and learn some lessons today.
I'm in. Tag me in, girl.
All right. So Samantha, I've read some of your book. I'm still working through it. It's an amazing book. So I'm really excited that I have it because there's a lot of work, some worksheets in there and some lessons to do. So I'm going to really use it as a way to get myself unstuck in certain things that I'm locked on.
Yeah.
And I was reading the beginning and like, what an interesting life story you had. Your mom was kind of like an interesting person who kind of jumped from job to job and a very interesting life. So talk a little bit about your backstory because I think it's fascinating.
Okay, well, I think that you're being really polite by saying interesting. Holy crap. But anyway, so, it's one of those things where nobody really, well, not me, not right. When I'm living in the solution mind. I don't really want to talk about my past. I do, don't get me wrong. But I don't talk about it a lot because it's what made me what I am today, right? But the people that helped me write the book said, no, you got to tell people about your past so they know that you've walked the path before.
That's a great point because, one of the things I love two things that you just said. One is a lot of people, they feel guilty about their past, or if they've had like a bump in the road, like it's almost like they want to be like, okay, I got through that, but I don't want to worry about it. But that's part of who made you who you are. And I think, especially when you're writing a book or you're trying to coach or you're trying to help people, it makes a lot of people be like, oh shit, she's just like me. I went through that. So I think that was a really great advice from them,
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's like, yeah. Anyway, well, here's the thing, because so many people, and you read this probably in the books, I talk about it pretty early in there, is, people feel like I need to know their story. I don't need to know your story because coaching is like, let's look through the windshield, not the rear view. But for the purpose of today,
yes.
So I become identifiable. I grew up a normal life. I mean, come on. My mom was married 7 times.
Oh my God. 7.
Actually, people, it's questionable. My sister, my brother and I were talking, one of my brothers, and she says, no, I think it was 8. I go, stop it.
Really? 8? My dad was married 4. She's got me. Yeah, that's nothing.
It's nothing, right?
Right.
So 7, let's call it 7. I'll give her, because that's not including boyfriends. Right? Those are actual marriages, and they were never to the same guy, but they always had the same thing in common. They were either alcoholics or abusers, or, you know what I mean? She had a shit magnet on her that, Yeah,
but Samantha, that's a really important point because I think a lot of people have the shit magnet. And I always say most people don't realize they're in the same cycle, different guy, different job, same person. And I think that that's such an important trick to really learn, because if we don't learn our trick, right, what happens? We keep repeating the cycle.
Well, and that's the thing. What's the common denominator?
Yourself.
Right?
Yeah.
So if somebody finds themselves saying, well, shit, this always happens to me. Common denominator.
Yeah.
Get out of the cycle. It's you, I promise. But that was the thing about my mom. And I'm so grateful to have learned this. Mm-hmm. My mom's still alive, by the way, and I don't hate her. I've worked through it. You know what I mean? But she's got late set Alzheimer's. So she doesn't know who I am half the time anyway. So, it's whatever. It's how it worked out.
Mm-hmm. And one more thing about that, Samantha, I think that's great that you said that you worked through it, because when we've been through either childhood trauma or we've been through difficult relationships or we picked up bad habits from our own parents, if we don't heal that relationship or find a way to close that door, we're just going to keep beating our head against the wall. So I think that's a great point.
Okay, so now I'm going to go back to what you just said because it's so fun. I hope everybody's taking notes because this is
take notes. You're gonna learn
friggin' in a vacuum today. Anyway, is that I didn't forgive her for her.
Right.
She did a lot of shitty things, and being a narcissist or mentally, ill or whatever the reasons were. I don't care about the reasons. As a human being and a child, I only care about really how it impacted me.
Yeah.
Okay. So then that being said is that I go, what's the gift in this? There was gifts in this. And you'll read in the book that I married my very own abusive alcoholic.
No, I got to that point already. So I was like, I know that you brought the cycle into your own life.
I did. When I was trying to not do that, I brought it into my own life. And the good news is I had a choice, draw a line right there and go, what the actual Sam. So, I could point my finger at him, but then, you got the 3 pointing back at me. So I took responsibility for my part in it, right? And that's the thing is that life's happening to you or through you, man. And so
yes, Samantha, I totally agree with you because that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't have to forgive the person for their actions because, it's shitty what they did and you shouldn't have to go through those things, especially as a kid. And I spoke to a lot of people through like my show over the past year of people that have been through shitty parenthoods or shitty childhoods because parents were broken or parents did things that betrayed their trust. And they just said that they had to get to a point that they wanted to move forward with their own life. So they had to learn to process it. You know what I mean? And so I think that because otherwise you stay in that shit and you just circle in it. You know what I mean? So I think that you have to find a way to process it. So
that victim mode, right? And so here's the thing: if everybody wants the tool of that, it sounds, because I heard it for years. It's like, we don't forgive for ourselves. Others we forgive for ourselves, and it's like, that sounds really great. How the hell do I do that? Because I'm pissed off now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, I'm mad now.
Right.
As I became, you want to know when I got mad?
Yeah.
When I had children. And when she started doing it to my kids, I'm like, oh no. We stop this right here. So so there's something to be said about that. And the reason I did it is because, you know what, she did the best she could. Shitty job. I'm super grateful because I learned a lot of what not to do. She's not a horrible person. She still has a soul and a spirit and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there you go. Do it over there. Wish you well.
I connect to you on this because you said when you had your own children, that really hit me because my dad had a toxic mom and it was a very toxic childhood for him. And, I always say that, my parents divorced at a young age and like, he's been involved, but he had like, as I'm older now, I kind of realized like, wow, he didn't really get what he should have got as a young man, as a little boy growing up. And when we became kids, she would still do that toxic shit to him.
Right.
And I remember just being like, that is not how you're supposed to treat your son. And one day I was with my mom and she tried to make me say something and like go against my dad's trust on something that had just happened. And I didn't say anything. She goes, oh, do it for your mother. And I just looked at her. My mother would never play that game. And I just left the house. And my mother goes, because my mom's very polite. And she's like, well, that's your grandmother. I go, Mom, listen, she's a toxic beast. Like, she is not a good person. Like, I'm going to be honest. I'm like, she's not going to pit me. She's not going to use her toxicity to pit me against you and him. That's not going to work. And I was a teenager. And it was amazing that my mom's like, you know what, Kristen, you're right. And because my mom's always trying to do the right thing by people. She doesn't like to be disrespectful, but she's like, you're right. She doesn't have the right to do that to you. So I think that's a really great point because when you're a kid or when you're a mom, you're protective over your children. You're like, oh no, I'm not repeating this cycle for them because I'm doing right by them.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that was just it. It's like, I can take it. I don't want my kids to grow up like I think maybe we both grew up. We're kind of street, smart ones, and it's kind of like, I was a survivor and I don't want my kids to ever be labeled a survivor. Right?
Yeah. Right. I know.
But anyway, so there's my 2 cents on that is that, I dropped out of high school a couple times. I haven't lived with a parent since I haven't lived with my actual parents, either one of my parents, since I was 14.
Wow. Now, did you ever know your real dad? I know there's been half dad.
That is my real dad. Okay. No, I write about my real dad.
Oh, that's right. I did read that in the book. Yeah.
My real dad, I'm his namesake, right? His name is Sam. So I'm Samantha.
Okay.
But he, he was a typical out of the coal mine, West Virginia, became, lied about his age when he was like 16 to get him in the military. He's out of the coal mine, military, football, cop, blue collar, go get a job as a bank teller, go get a job at the DMV. By the way, don't
call. A nice safe job for 20 years and we're talking about pension. Yeah.
Exactly. And he was a drinker. I mean, a heavy drinker, alcoholic, right? So, we just kind of learned that, okay, it's after 5, don't call dad.
Wow. Yeah, that's tough, and it's funny because I think that so many people don't realize that. They think that sometimes they judge a book by a cover, like look at you and like, oh, look at her. She's tall, she's blonde, she's blue-eyed. Like her life must have been so easy. And it's like, you just never know what's going on in someone's household. And I always say that about people. Like, I always try to say like, you don't know. Like a lot of people think that I'm always like my life was so freaking easy. And it's like, no, I had tough times, but I learned from my childhood and I learned from hard things in my life. And that's why I'm such a happy person. I'm grateful because I know the ugly, I know the hard, I know that. So I want to try to be happy, and it's a conscious choice.
But you've got like we talked about the book about making like yummy cookies, right? So one of the ingredients to making yummy cookies or making a yummy life is take responsibility.
Yeah.
Keep your side of the street clean. That's another thing, right? So what somebody else chooses to do, that's fine. My 15-year-old had a bit of a falling out with his buddy. And quite frankly, my 15-year-old was wrong. There you go. I said, clean it up. And he says, well, I'm trying. I said, just keep going. He goes, well, he won't talk to me. I said, keep texting him until he blocks you. And, so then I checked in a few days later. I said, how'd it go? He goes, we talked. He's still mad. I go, and rightly so. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like, it's growing up. We only grow up by doing. So you're supposed to make mistakes. And I said, how's your side of the street? He goes, squeaky clean. I go, cool. Yeah. Your side of the street, just like I'm powerless over other people, but I'm going to make sure I sleep well at night, knowing I have cleaned my shit up and done the best I can.
Samantha, I love that because God, how dare you make your kid accountable for his actions? My mom raised us that way. And I think it makes you such a better human being and a better adult because you're learning how to own your shit and take accountability when you're wrong. Like you might have a disagreement with a friend. You might overstep a boundary with somebody sometime. But if you say, hey, I was an asshole yesterday, sorry, at least the person knows that you're apologizing for your actions and you can grow from there instead of just being like, well, she did this, so I'm not going to talk to her. I'm like, well, she deserved it. You can't justify your shitty behavior. When you're being an asshole, you're being an asshole. And you have to kind of right.
Thank you. I mean, that's it. If you guys want to know how to grow, if anybody wants to know how to grow, first take responsibility for what is yours. And maybe you had some really horrible, yucky things happen to you, but how you reacted to that or responded, that's on you.
Yes. I mean, I think that's his whole point. Like everyone's like, oh, well, my this happened to me, so I have the right to do that. It's like, no, you don't. Like, you have to try to figure your shit out because otherwise, and that's another thing, like going back to like when you were saying like not looking in the mirror and not owning up to what you are wrong or right about. That's you're gonna take it into everything. You're gonna take it into relationships. You're gonna take it into your personal relationships, and you're gonna overstep bounds with a lot of people. And you're going to make a lot of mistakes and lose a lot of friendships or lose a lot of jobs. Like I know that I was a more of a feisty communicator as a younger woman.
You mean when you were younger, you were?
Yeah. but I'm saying I feel like I try to be a little bit more productive in my direct communication as I get older, especially in like a work environment. You know what I mean? I really I think that it's something that you learn as you get older. You get a lot more with somebody if you come with if you present the information right.
Yes,
I think it comes off a little bit better if you stick to the facts and calm instead of feisty.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, we do the best we can, but how many times did you look back at an interaction where you were feisty? That's what we'll call it, and really get what you wanted, other than a story of how feisty you were.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh, I told them. Okay. But did you get the end result that you wanted other than,
Right. So I think if you can be a little bit firm and like direct and people go, ooh, they find a respect because you presented the information in a productive way that is like, hey, you did X, Y, Z and that just doesn't or whatever, or you overstepped a boundary or people be like, oh, and then you open a dialogue and maybe it actually helps that person look in the mirror and be like, oh, I didn't realize that I do that or I did that. I just think that I think it's something that I wish more people I wish you taught more correct conflict resolution or productive conversation. Now, you do coaching in business? Is that something that you do in your
I
business?
do both. I do life sales and business. Yeah.
Okay. Now, how did you get into sales? And then how did you get into how did sales come? I'm sure you went through a lot of jobs with your street smarts and your different process. And then how did coaching come out of that?
Okay. So we go back to me being the big giant quitter in school and college and everything. I actually wanted to be a music teacher.
Okay.
And so when I dropped out of college, what?
You play instruments or sing?
Sing.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I dropped out of high school, I got my GED when I was 16. And I went off to community college. And then I realized that and I hated school. Sorry, I'm a school hater. Hi. Anyway, school hater here. And so I went off to college and I found out, I'm going to go to a university or college here, and I'm going to make the same amount of money when I graduated as I'm making now managing the shoe store, the video store back then. That was a video store. So, some people have leadership qualities. I think being, super tall might be part of that. I was always taught to carry myself as a tall person, not as, this and blah, blah, blah. Plus having 4 older brothers that beat the shit out of me, that pretty much makes you wanna, because they're just picking on a little sister, by the way. I'm not saying I'm reporting them for abuse.
Everybody messes with the little sister. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So I just got into leadership roles. It just kind of happened. You know what I mean? It's just that I'm just going to tell you, it just kind of happened. So then you kind of scale up. You kind of go, okay, well, I'm really good at this. And so I can make more money when I get really good at this. And I happened to get a job that happened to really teach me to be good at my job. Does that make sense? Like,
it totally makes sense, because I think
it was like school.
Right. Like I would think like my management came early on because I was responsible. I was good at training people. So I got one of my first management jobs because I was a self-starter and I was a leader. So I completely understand. And then you learn your skill sets as you go along. And so it's like, sometimes the universe tells you this is what you should be doing. Right?
Yeah. And so that's exactly what happened, is that my school was this company I worked for when I was like 20, 21. And it raised me. I worked for them like almost 7 years. And it was like, it raised me. And so I'm super grateful for that. And anyway, it just just kept going. You know what I mean? Just like, okay, bigger title, more money, more, all that stuff. Because money was security to me. Right?
Yeah.
And it is for a lot of people. But it really was for me because I'm a dropout. I didn't go to school. I was the white trash in the fancy neighborhood growing up. My mom.
I can connect to that so much, because Boston is a very like when I was growing up, we went from an affluent community to a working class neighborhood. And it was like, oh, you live in that neighborhood. And I used to be like, what? I don't understand why you would judge people by an address. So I used to be like, what is money? You think money makes you who you are? But I mean, it is. So I can completely connect to that part of your story. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it also is like, don't answer the door because it's somebody serving us papers. Because my mom was brilliant at not taking responsibility. Like we said, like not paying the mortgage, like closing down businesses. Like we were getting sued left and right. I'm a little kid. Don't answer the door because it's someone that's going to serve papers. It's just like, so security was everything to me. I don't need you. I don't need you. I don't need you. I'm going to do my deal. Right?
Right.
So that's how I got good at managing and leading and selling. And because my heart of hearts, I always want to help people. That's always been a thing. I love helping people. Yeah. And I learned very young, how you help in my world. For me, I help people by growing them.
I love that.
By growing them, giving them, skills or whatever it is. So that's how I got into sales and management and everything. And then the way I became a coach is, I'll give my husband credit on this. He's like, you always help everybody. Why don't you charge for it? I'm like, okay. Just kidding.
Good for him, because that's like such a hard thing when you're a helper. I know that's one of the things that I struggle with, is like I almost feel guilty if like you have to ask for money, because like, I just help. I just think, I just do it for everybody. Like they come to the bar and I help them. This person calls me, I help them. You know what I mean? Like I get on stage and I help them. So yeah, I think that's good for your husband for pushing that initiative.
but I didn't want to be, like I said, I'm not really good. I'm not patient. I'm not terribly empathetic with past stories. So me being a therapist would not be a good idea.
Right.
So I just took this skill and I went to school. Creeping me out. I went to school, but I loved it. I went to school to become a coach.
Yeah.
And reinvented myself at 45 years old.
I love that. Yeah.
Right? Why not? Well, look at you.
Yeah.
You are too.
I think that's what so many people think. Like, they don't understand. Like, you have chapters in your life, just like a chapter of a book, you know. And a lot of times, especially as a woman, like a lot of times you're building your family, your marriage, your career. But then sometimes your career, when the kids get a little bit older, you're like, what's next? Or I'm sick of doing this. Like, what is the next thing that I'm passionate about? And I think that's what a lot of people have to realize, that it's okay to have a new chapter at 45.
And do it imperfectly. Everybody's like, well, I can't because I would, but, oh my God, I hate the would buts. I would, but what? Oh. You would, but what? Like lean in. That's just an excuse.
Yeah.
And it's okay if it's an excuse, and say, I have an excuse. I'm chicken and I don't want it that bad. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, well, what if I fail? You only fail if you're in the game.
Yeah.
There's no shame in getting knocked down when you're on the field, my friend.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so anyway, where were we?
No, you totally made that perfect, because that's what I was thinking. I love that. I want to backtrack when you were like, I wouldn't have been a good therapist. I feel like the same way, because a lot of therapists like, how did that make you feel? How did that make you feel? And I get it. I mean, people should do it to get there. But for me, when they sit in front of me at the bar, I don't do all that. I just go right for the jugular. I think that's kind of similar how you coach. And I think a lot of people go, wow, I didn't even really put that together, because I skipped some of that stuff sometimes. And people are like, that's so true, Kristen. Thank you so much. That made so much sense to me. And I think that's what a good coach can do for people. A lot of people are, like you said, one of the things you said, are you a perfectionist or a procrastinator? And I think so many people, we get stuck for a lot of different reasons, either from things that people told us, either afraid to fail, perfectionism, and procrastinator, you know? Yep. So, yeah. What do you think about that?
I think you're 100% right. I mean, procrastination is usually fear of being found out, or doing something that we don't want to do.
Right.
Well, guess what? We have to do shit we don't want to do, guys. I mean, sometimes you don't have to spend your life like that. I mean, the book right here, listen, the book says, the guide to designing a life you love. So you get to have a whole life that you would love. I have a whole life that I would love, but I have little pieces of it. I don't want to do it, but guess what? We're going to do it. But there's small pieces of it, not the big pieces of it. Right. So yeah. It's procrastination is because we don't want to do it. Even though am I wrong?
No, you're 100% right, because I know that I am such a procrastinator on certain things. And then I have noticed this past year, when I stopped procrastinating, every time I took an action, it's tripled or completed completely different ripples for me. So I'm like, okay, cut the shit and stop procrastinating, because you're stopping your progress by doing that.
That's the supersizing it. That's the universe just going, thank you for moving. Let's go. You know, and I think this is another thing, is so many, you got to believe in something. You know, I wrote that in chapter 2, right there.
Yeah, I was reading the whole thing about spiritual, because you've had a lot of different religious, and like a lot of people get, like you were saying, like same thing. A lot of people get caught up on the religion. They're like, ooh, but I'm, and I think I'm one of those people you hate, because I said I'm a spiritual, I'm not religious, but it's because my parents, like, I was brought up in a certain faith. I was brought up in Catholicism.
I was going to say, let me guess, Catholic.
Yeah, and then going to Catholic high school was so conforming to me, and I was always like, but why? But why? And the teacher was like, just shut up, Kristen. But then as I got older, I'm a very big believer, when I speak to the man upstairs in my car by myself, I always get an answer. And every time when I trust the universe, it always lines up for me. So you get into that little thing.
And as much as you're special, because I think you're really cool and you are special, what you just said is true for every single person. And that's where the doubt comes in. They don't think, it's like when I work with my clients, you know, I'll say, okay, so what's your answer? I don't know. I said, no, you do. You know, I'm kind of tough to work with, because I really have done this for 10 years now, you know, every day, well, work days, right? Coaching. It's like, no, you know the answer. The answer exists. You need to get out of the problem and stop saying I'm confused, because that's just your paradigm keeping you down.
Right.
So if there was an answer, Why not ask whatever that is that you believe in it, you know, be it God or energy or universe or source, and say, okay, what is it I need to know about this? What is this? If I was going to do something, what's a good next best move?
Right.
We'll get an answer. Trust me, every time. People should try it.
Totally agree with you, because I was saying to somebody earlier today that I feel like I'm a connector sometimes, and I'll read something or somebody will DM me like you, and it'll be like, oh my God, I'm supposed to have this conversation with this person. And then like something I learned from this conversation will go on with another, and it kind of ripples out. And every time I've ever been like, what should I do? Do I do this? Do I do that? And I just say it, like, it literally would be like something will come in front of me that told me this is what I was supposed to do. So I completely agree with you. And I love the fact that you said you're tough to work with, because that probably means that you're good and people get results with you. Because you have a quote that you said, that this is one of my favorite quotes: you will be too much for some people, but they're not your people. And I agree, right?
They're not your people. And here's the thing my clients know about me, because I've had some clients that literally have been with me 10 years.
Wow.
Right? So they get me in the sense that I just want the best for my client, period. I have nothing else. I got nothing in the game. I don't get paid more. I don't get loved more. I don't live somewhere. I'm not a mom, a sister, a girlfriend.
Right.
I'm none of those things. I'm a coach. I'm the only person probably on the planet that's 100% in my client's corner, because there's no ulterior motives other than their success.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I am kind of tough, because it's like, you're paying me money. Stop.
Yeah.
I want to feel really good about this, so my clients get really good results.
Yeah.
I can tell when they're doing the work or not. It's like, don't con a con. My dad taught me that. Sam, don't con a con.
Yeah, because you can tell when someone's just going through the motions, right? And what's the point? If you're going to pay a coach, why would you want to go through the motions? Do you want to get somewhere, or do you just want to kind of half-ass it? It's like going to the gym or paying a personal trainer, and then you're really eating cheeseburgers every night. And you're like, why aren't I getting anywhere? It's like, because you ate like 5 cheeseburgers and didn't follow the eating plan.
Yeah. I always tell people, I said, I know if you do the work. You don't even have to talk to me. I just know by what shows up in your life. And that goes back to what we were talking about energy source, whatever. You know, I know that when I open myself up to, okay, I got a DM from Sam for some reason, I need to talk to her or whatever, that it's the universe or whatever going, let's go.
Yeah.
And we're not in this alone. You got this giant power, be it God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it, that's matching you.
Right.
It's
yeah.
Like, and everything always works out. So far, everything's always worked out. No matter what. If you're listening to us, your life's worked out.
Right. And anything that didn't work out was the lesson of what it might lean into something else. So it's like, it all kind of goes around. So it's like, it's okay. You can have a choppy background and still do something successful. Look at Samantha, you know?
Well, look at you. But how many times have we looked back and go, oh, that's why I didn't get my way.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I didn't get my way. I wanted it to be this way. So the how it works out, none of your business. Just know it's working out, and it always has.
Right. There was one part of your book. One of my favorite words is complacency. And that was in they have like a little section we break down a bunch of different words. Complacency for me, I think, is people's biggest enemy, because a lot of times when we become complacent, we almost are just existing. We're just kind of going through the motions. What is important to complacency to you?
I'm going to out myself here.
Okay.
Okay, so I myself have been complacent.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going to say for like the last 2 years, 3 years maybe, because I designed this life I really loved. I got to raise my kids. I got to work like 20 hours a week. You know, I mean, like my life was easy, and I'm almost embarrassed to say how easy it was, but I would say to myself, you deserve easy, because it was really fucking hard for a long time. So good not being a saboteur in your own life and stuff like that, right? Well, then I got a little too complacent, and I realized I got a little too complacent. So now I've actually hired a business coach for me, mentor / and she's kicking my ass. So I'm going to tell you, if you're wondering if you're just coasting, you are.
Yeah.
You know the answer. And come on, part of your job as a bartender. Alcoholics know they're alcoholics. It's not a surprise. They're hiding it from you.
Right.
Okay, one piece of it might be denial.
Right.
But they know deep down inside. It's like
Right.
they thought to themselves, I wonder if I have a drinking problem. Yes, you do.
I think everybody does in 2020. I think so. Everybody got through this past year. I think rehabs are going to be so busy next year. So yeah, that's a funny point. Yeah.
Oh, the reason I can't lose my 15 pounds is because I fully enjoy my margaritas on the weekends and my scotch and my wine. So
Yeah.
that's me. But
no, I think that's really important. I think a lot of times it's very easy when you get into a good groove, and there's nothing wrong. I mean, it depends on what you want. Like some people, if you've reached and you're good and you're fine with where you're at, and you want to go to work and you want to come home and you like to have, put your show on in the night, that's great. But yeah. I mean, if you do want more, you got to check yourself with the complacency, because it settles in really easy. It's very easy to become a person of habit, because it's really how we raise society. You know what I mean? You get up, you go to school, you do that. Then you go on to college and you do that. Then you go to work and you do that. So it's kind of the way our society is kind of created. So, I mean, if you want bigger things, it's okay to want bigger things. Don't feel bad about it, but you're just going to have to shake it up.
Okay. So I'm going to marry something to this wanting bigger things, especially to my Catholic guilt girl here. No, just kidding.
My mom's got that.
Yeah, I don't either. No, but here's the thing is that, people will say, well, it's not all about the money. Of course it's not all about the money. Right. Duh. You know what I mean? But money makes things a lot easier. And so I tell people that money doesn't buy happiness, but neither does poverty.
Right.
So let's take that money piece, because sense of deserving is something that comes up with my clients all the time, male and female.
Yeah, it does.
Sense of deserving. Oh, I feel like, I don't deserve it, or it came too easy, or it's too hard, or whatever it is. Here's the truth of the matter. Go ahead and make the money anyway. And if you don't feel like you deserve it, donate it. There's so many people that need you to be abundant. You can help so many people. So, you know what I mean? So insert that. If someone's kind of having a problem with, money, that's a bullshit story. The money doesn't, but I don't need it. Well, somebody else does, so make it for them.
Right. I literally just had this conversation with my friends. He's going to come on in a couple of weeks, and we're really going to get into the whole like money and capital and this and that, because a lot of people are having such an issue with people that make money, don't make. It's a big conversation right now.
I know.
And I always say, like, I started with none. So my mom was really, really taught us that it's about so I have the inside piece, but there is a lock when it comes to the finance thing, right? But it's true. I don't need it to make me happy, but you're right. It makes life a lot fucking easier. And that's one thing I will say, because especially this year, it's really made me realize, I want to build my own thing, because watching what happened this year, you're like, if you're doing your own thing, nobody can tell you that you can't go to work. You know, so that was the knock over the head that I needed this year. And that's what made me kind of be like, all right, I'm kind of ready now to kind of look into what are some of the options, or what is the way I want to do it,
It's like this year, I think, was super important. I'm just going to say it was super important. And for a lot of people, look at all the real estate, look at all the people moving, look at all the remote, look at all these people that said, well, I'd love to, but I can't.
Right.
And then conditions and circumstances change. And guess what? Now you can.
Yeah.
But,
I totally agree with you on that, because you had a big video about that I really liked. And I felt the same way. I had a love-hate with 2020. It was a big year of growth for me. And I really feel like people really found out what was important. I really felt like people got back to basics. I'm kind of a simplistic person. Mm-hmm. I like the basics. It's the little things that you need in life, not the bigger things. And a lot of people have it flipped. And I feel like that's why so many people are unhappy. And I was like, oh, this is great. People caring about one another, and they're they're having dinner with their family, and they're going for a walk at night. I'm like, this is so great. And then so much other stuff happened, and then so much anger and I think you were saying fear and frustration and all this stuff happened. So I think you were saying we don't want to go back to normal.
No,
we want to learn from this, and we want to find, and I love that you say this, solutions, soul, SOUL.
Cool.
Yes, it's such a great point, because we have to get back to understanding that we're different people with different journeys, and it's about the soul though. But if you come from a place of kindness and empathy and doing good things, then the uglier stuff isn't as bad, or the fear. So talk a little bit about that video and what you want people to learn from this past year and take it into 2021.
Well, again, it's solutions, right? Because we're all wearing a meat suit. You've got that, and you and I've talked in the past, briefly about values.
Yeah.
What are your values?
Yeah.
Are they kindness? Are they giving? Are they family? Are they fun? Those are all cool values, right? So
Right.
a lot of the separation that's happened this year, I would say, if you look at deep in it, it might be a separation of values. So there's that piece. But it's kind of like, let's look at, okay, wait, I'm going to change subjects. I have to tell you something that's going to be happening with a lot of your listeners, of people watching this, because this is the new thing that's coming up with my clients. Ready?
Yeah.
What they should have done this past year and didn't. So now they're trying to push themselves down again. Oh my God, I had this opportunity and I haven't done anything for the last 13 months. And I'm going to beat myself up. Stop it. That's serving nobody,
right,
including you.
Right.
So draw a line in the sand. You spent the last year in a situation that you could have never predicted would ever happen in your lifetime.
I want to, if I can just interject for a second.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I think that was so important about 2020, it was a lot of people either, I think some people were just trying to survive.
Yes.
And I said to people, like, listen, I came on with kind of doing a nightly show, trying to make people have an hour away from the news cycle and trying to lift people's spirits, because it was just like, it was Groundhog Day for a lot of people. A lot of people didn't even get dressed, or some people were thrown out of their schedule and didn't know what to do. So I was like, listen, don't beat yourself up. Some people really rose to the occasion and they created businesses and they moved and they changed their lives. And I think a lot of people look at me like, wow, damn, Kristen worked a job and did all this stuff. And I don't care. I was just very lucky that I rolled with it. I felt like I knew I needed to stay busy. But then if you just got out of bed in the morning, good for you. Because I don't judge you either way. Some people just were like, hey, I even got out of bed this morning. That was hard for some people. So and that's what I think you're saying. Like, don't beat yourself up whether you rose to the occasion or you just got through it, because it disrupted so many people's lives and nobody had been there before. So hey, if you got through the year, you got through the year, whatever.
And so here we are today. So presence is such a cool thing. Okay, so that was that. You can look at it, and how do you want to spin the story? You know what? I got through it, like you're saying. I got through it. All right, you ready to roll up your sleeves? Let's go.
Yeah.
And there's learning in this past year. There's 100%. So much learning. So the one piece that from this part we should give people is, if you're going to spend time beating yourself up, is because you want to stay stuck. Because you're more comfortable stuck than designing a life, and what's capable for Kristen is capable for anybody. What one person can do, everybody can do.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you're special, but we all have our
everybody's special, right? And that's what I realized, like, God, like, and I think so many people, whether it be like your childhood, like, look at you could have been like, I'm garbage, I had a tough life, I didn't come from the right neighborhood. You could have just given up and be like, that's who I am, like, I got a job or whatever. Or you can be like, hey, I can't let what happened to me as a childhood be the decision of where I'm going to be. So I think a lot of people have to really those little mindset shifts, or those little inner conversations you have with yourself. Are you going to sit there and say that you're not worthy, or you are worthy?
Yeah.
Or are you going to let there and say, like, that was like, and I think that's one of the things that I think that's probably what a coach probably helps some people that have that wrong dialogue in their head turn around. And I love the fact that you call your program Designing a Life You Love, because I think that's the whole key to love. Like, life, I think one of my favorite sayings is, live a life you love and love a life you live. And I think that's right. Isn't that such a great quote? So what are some of the things that you think what made you decide to call it Design a Life You Love?
Love.
Yeah.
Okay. So I talk about one of my former mentors, and that was something that Mary Morrissey, and that's something that she used, those words, love.
Mm-hmm.
What would you love? And it just really landed on me. It's not like, or want.
Love.
It's love. Love has got such if you could assign a vibration to a word, which you can, but for my purpose today. So, what's got a stronger vibration, like, want, or love? Love. Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah. Love that song.
I love that song. I went to that restaurant. I love their spaghetti, whatever. It's like, oh, I like it.
Yeah.
So it's that, gosh, I had this thought I wanted to give you a second ago and I forgot it. Anyway.
All right, okay.
Yeah, no. So it's design a life you love. And so I said it a couple minutes ago, it's possible for one, it's possible for anyone. The stuff that I teach in the book and my coaching and all that, yes, it's got my spin on it.
Yep.
My life experience on it. I didn't invent this shit.
Right.
Okay. I learned it too.
Right.
I learned it through going through it. I learned it through watching others. I learned most of my lessons the hard way, by the way.
Yep.
Sorry. I wish I could tell you. It's like, oh, don't do that. That wasn't me. It's like, well, watch me. So I got my thought. Everything is a thought.
Yeah.
Okay, hold in with me here for this, because
I want to hear this.
if nobody takes anything from how you and I talk today, I want them to take this piece.
Okay.
Everything is a thought, period.
So true.
It's how you think about things.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you respond versus react. Everything was a thought before it became a thing. Follow me.
No, I'm following.
Somebody thought up water bottles. It's a thought before it becomes a thing. What's one thing that you can, no matter what, control, Kristen?
Ooh, my thoughts.
Thank you.
Because that's one of the things, somebody asked me yesterday in the DM, like, how do you stay positive and happy when the world's a mess falling around you? And I was like, because I call myself a realistic optimist. So I'm optimistic, but I'm also realistic. So I look at the ugly, I look at the bad. I know that evil exists.
Yeah.
Right? But I understand that I can't consume that only because what I think is what I become. So if I only focus on that, I'm going to wallow in it, and then I'm going to be swimming in it, in the ugliness. So then I have to take it, know it's here, and then I'm all right. Well, how can I flip it? So then I try to bring some positivity, some light, some dialogue, some conversations, and hopefully I can lift a couple people out of it and maybe give them some nuggets along the way. So that's how I kind of deal with it.
But you're also modeling.
Yeah.
I mean, you're modeling it. And that's the thing. It's just you do the best Kristen you can do. Right. And people go, man, she can do it. I can do it. And it's, I'll throw life rings, but I'm not jumping in the water anymore. You know what I mean? I'm going to throw you life ring, man, and I'll throw it 3 times. You better grab it.
You don't want to grab it, man. You're going to just drown. No,
right.
That's such a great point, Samantha, because that's what I always say to people. Like, listen, I'm the biggest encourager. I will tell you that you're amazing, and I will listen to your problem, and I'm going to tell you the truth. But if you consistently keep going back and smashing your head against the wall, then you're going to knock yourself out. I can't knock myself out. You know what I mean? So I think that's so true, because you want the person to learn. They have to decide that they want to change or not change. So, yes.
And where's that point? So here's some other tools on the thought thing. And, you were saying, people's like, how do you do this when the world's so crazy and so bad, or blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Okay, so this is really important. Don't deny the facts.
Right.
Don't deny it. Yes, the world's really shitty. It's bad. There's terrible things going on. There's fights. There's blah, blah, blah. There's all that. So don't deny it.
Right.
Here's the step.
Okay.
Energize the truth. Write that down, you guys. Energize the truth.
I'm going to write that down now too, because I love that. That's a good point.
So, and I'll give you a simple example. Okay. Fact is, I have, $100 in my bank account. I'm not going to deny that.
Yep.
But the truth is, I can go sell something, or I can go, I can have another $100 tomorrow. So put your energy into what you would love to have, not into that low pull you down frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So don't deny the facts, energize the truth. My sister, recovered from stage 4 cancer. They basically sent her home on hospice going, good luck, see you.
Wow.
And her family said to me, Aunt Sam, I think she's in denial. I go, no. She's just denying the diagnosis.
Yes. Wow, Sam.
She's energizing the truth, and the truth is she can be completely healed. And let me just tell you that she was completely cancer-free.
That's insane, Samantha. I love that, because I'm such a believer that, your thoughts really can perpetuate what you want in life. And so many people don't realize the value of their mindset. So that's one of the things that this year I've had to really focus on that, because it's so easy to get pulled into the shit or the ugliness, or get pulled into that conversation. And then it seeps into me. I can catch myself. So now I said, listen, Kristen, you really got to be more proactive at pulling yourself out of that and not getting stuck into that into that wave, because it can take you in so easily. And then it plays on my psyche and my energy. So I really, that's one of the things I'm so conscious of, how I treat my energy, because I know that I have highs and lows, and my lows can be brutal. And I know that I'm better when I'm working in a high vibration. So I try to keep my highs. And that's just facts. And it's not that like my life is, yay, everything's easy. No, I have shitty days, but I just feel like I don't want to wallow in it, because I know it's just going to make a bad week. And I don't want a bad week.
Right. Well, whatever you give energy to, you get more of, period. Right. Bottom line. Whatever you, that's okay. So we go all the way back to the start of our conversation. Right. And I say, I can tell you that I know when my clients are doing their work or not. And this is even when I do my courses. Like I do courses and I might have 20 or 30 people in the course. I can't see them. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, but I can say, check in, what's going on? And I'm like, you're not doing the work, because your life would be changing right now. I've been doing this long enough to know. Yeah. Thoughts become things. Yep. So change your thinking. If you want to know what you energize, take a look at your life. Yep. Period. If it sucks, you have sucky thoughts. Yeah. I know, and people don't make that connection. I'll take it on another level. I always celebrate what I have instead of I don't have, like and that's a simple shift. Like, hey, I might not have the biggest house, but I have a house. I might not have the best car, but I have a car. You know what I mean? And I think that a lot of people are so worried about having the best, and they don't realize like could be a trap. You could be spending too much money on that and then not have the money to invest in a business or invest in yourself, because you're too busy making sure that you have the right one when you're out on the street for street cred, So yeah, that's a great point. That's low self-esteem, by the way. Yeah, I know. That's low self-esteem. I got to have the fancies. Don't get me wrong. I like nice things. In case you guys were wondering, I like nice things. Yeah. But it hasn't always been that way, and I earned them. Yeah. I earned them. You know what I mean? So they're paid for, and there's nothing wrong. I'm not going to feel nice bad. Right. I'm not going to feel bad because I have nice things. Right. Because I do remember when I was literally searching for pennies when I was married to my ex-husband, for pennies in the corner. I can picture the apartment right now, trying to buy a newspaper to get a job. Yeah. So because I chose to never go back to that place, doesn't mean that we can't have nice things. But if somebody wants to compare, let me tell you this. I love this. Ready? Compare backwards. Don't compare across. Don't compare ahead or to others. Compare backwards. Where are you today from where you were last year or 2 years or 5 years ago? I love that, Samantha. That is super, super powerful, because that's what so many people's problem is. They're looking beside themselves, like they're looking at this person or that person. They go, oh my God, that person. And what I love about that, there's two things I love about that statement. One, it's because it gives you credit from where you came from, right? And what you've accomplished. And then and it's keeping you focused forward of where you're going, right? But the second thing I love about that is that you don't know the other person's backstory. You know what I mean? You're always like, it's like that saying that you're judging somebody on the chapter that they're on, and you didn't read their whole entire book, or you're judging somebody by like their camera roll, like the one that they want to post and not all the things that they threw away. Yeah, so that I think that's a really, really super powerful comment for so many people, because we spend so much time over focused on what other people are doing, and we could really probably just put a lot of more energy into what we're doing. When we focus on the competition piece, Wallace Wattles wrote a book in The Science of Getting Rich back in 1910. Competition is the thief of creativity, right? Yes. So it's kind of like, you want to compete with yourself. You know what? Compete with yourself, and I promise you, living a happy, yummy life that you really love. Mm-hmm. Other people look at it and it'll be like, in that book when Harry met Sally, when she's like doing the sex scene or the restaurant scene, where the mom says, I want some of what she's having. You do you and model you, and you live a really yummy life, and then people will be attracted to that, and you're going to get more people that kind of become part of your tribe. Right. So true. One of the things I love that you said is going back to like, focusing yourself and like competing with yourself. Yeah. I love that you have this little exercise. You say who you are without your name, your career, your things, or your friends. That really gets back to like, who are you?
right? And I think when you, that kind of like take all that shit out, right? Who is Samantha? Who is Kristen? That's so like tough for people to do.
I dare people that when, the world really starts opening up and you go back to bars and cocktails, and I dare you to start a conversation and you can't use so what do you do?
You know what I love about you saying that, Samantha? That's my biggest pet peeve.
Is it?
Yeah, because I always call it like an interview, right? Like when I was a young girl in Boston, you'd be at a club and guys were like, oh, where are you from? What do you do? Where do you go to school? I'm like, is this an interview? You want my resume or you want to know about me? And a lot of people, like, I get kind of sick of those. I like organic conversations. So a lot of times I'm like, don't ask me my favorite song or my favorite concert I've ever been to. Like, talk to me about life. Like, then that's where the conversation really gets interesting. But a lot of people just go to those normal 5 questions, and you're just like, oh God, it just becomes so like monotonous sometimes. It makes the conversation almost feel stagnant, because it's like you answer it 14 times a night. Yeah, especially when you're meeting people, like come over and like try to say like, oh, hey, that looks interesting. What are you drinking? And then like let an organic conversation come. Try to find that. I love that.
Well, because how many people get hung up on what they do? It's like, you're not your job. That's just what you do for money.
Or as parents, I've noticed a lot of parents are now caught up on who their kid is. So you listen to a lot of conversations. Like when I'm bartending, I listen to conversations constantly. And I understand sometimes, like I'll ask a customer sometimes, like, because I never know who's visiting. I'm like, oh, what do you do? You know what I mean? Just so I know what they're coming from.
Yeah.
And then build off like, so, and then I'll kind of try to get into other things. But sometimes if I'm trying to figure out like what the job is, are they visiting? Do they work in the neighborhood? Because for me, I'm trying to decide if you're going to be a regular that's going to come in all the time, or are you just passing through? But then like, I love listening to the conversation when it's like, oh, so you got 3 scores and blah, 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 and da, 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 da. And I'm like, and I get it. You're proud of your kid. But at the same time, you are still a person and you're out with your friend. Like, hey, what have you been up to? Like, what's going on in your life? I get that the kids are going to be part of the conversation, but still make sure you're still Bob or you're still Samantha, because you're not your children, because they're going to leave you. I hate to tell you, like, and I unfortunately, but they get bigger, like, especially now with the technology, man. You're lucky if you can get a conversation out of some of these kids nowadays.
Mine's getting ready to go to university, so shut your mouth, Kristen.
I know.
No, but here's the thing. It's not an all or nothing. So I think people are listening to us going, well, how the hell do I talk to people? It's not black or white. It's not all or nothing.
Mix it up.
But it is, are you identifying your worth with your job? Because guess what? If you lost your job this year, and you identified with your job, you're screwed. And it's just not the truth. That's it. It's not the truth. The fact is, you don't have a job. The truth is, go design a job you'd love, and just, so we're not saying you can't ask somebody, where are you from, or, anything like that. But let's just get a little bit deeper in. So, what kind of work do you do in the world? I actually asked that question.
That's a good one. I like that. That's a better way to phrase it, because it sounds interesting. What do you do in the world? Because one time and I think a lot of people underestimate their job. They're just like, I just do this and that. And then they're kind of feeling negative about themselves. So I'll say, oh, well, like one time I had a guy that was like, oh, we design glass, blah, 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 blah. But it was something that amazing what the glass does. I go, well, think of what you're doing with the ripple effect of that job. Like, you're actually making a glass that's making this possible. And I go, so that's kind of cool if you think about it in that way, because it's so easy for people to kind of like not feel like they're interesting because of their job too. So sometimes like it's a double-sided question for me, because I'm trying to like make them see that they do something kind of cool, because I don't know how to do that. And sometimes it's interesting what people do.
Well, I think this is me thinking that there's a portion of all of us that needs to be in service. It's just me. I think that, we need to be in service of. Can you think of a job that's not serving something in some way?
No, I mean,
Bring it.
I don't think I can, because really, in some way, shape, or form, you are serving.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I always say that I'm serving people food and drinks, but I'm also serving them conversation and connection. Right. And that's one of the things that was hard for me when I was out for 3 months. And then when I went back, I was like, I don't care where I'm going to bartend or waitress for the rest of the month, because I just needed that personal connection, because that's something about the conversation that kind of like fills me a little. I just like people and hearing their story, because sometimes it changes my mood. Being around a good conversation with a good person. can totally change my day. But yes, service is like what we do. Like there's some way, shape, or form you are serving people.
You're serving, and when you live at your authentic self. I know that sounds hokey, but it's true. So when we're at our authentic self and we're doing us, be of service, be kind, and know that whatever it is that you choose to do, and I don't. You know what? It's from the 80s mentality of like, the yuppies, and you had to have bigger, better, greater, da 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 da.
Yeah.
Be happy, do you?
Right.
Because all the world needs is more people happy with themselves. And guess what? If somebody says, "Oh, well, you do, a low-level job," I'm happy.
Yeah.
You do a high-level job, and your wife hates you. I don't care.
It's so true.
Because it goes back to we don't know people's stories, right?
Right. Bigger isn't always better.
Just be happy. Like some of the greatest people I know do low-level jobs, and they're amazing, and they're super happy. So.
And that's one of the reasons I love having conversations on my show with people from all different walks of life, because a lot of times, sometimes that person who might be a low-level job to somebody else, they have an amazing passion that on the side, they're like feeding people or doing something amazing. And I'm just like, how dope is that? And I think going back to what you're saying about serving, I find the more people that I talk to that have a serving side or do something that they're passionate, they're happier people in general.
Right.
There's ripples that it comes back. It's like it goes in and out, so.
Do work you love. And if you don't 100% love it, love what the work does for you. And what I mean by that is, let's say I personally have a bad back, and I have a strong nose. So I probably don't want to be a garbage person. I probably am not, it's not the best use of me, and I probably wouldn't enjoy that very much. But it's a union, and it would pay really well. So then can I be happy with the money I get from that to go do other things that I love?
Right.
So there's a caveat too, by the way. There's a piece to that when people say, "Oh, live your purpose, do a job you love." And guys, let's not black or white. Sometimes we do what we do so we can do more of what we love.
That is a great point. As we get towards the end, I think that's what I love to say to people all the time. Like, I love serving, I love bartending, I love waitressing. I have passions that I want to do, or I have other things that are bigger, but I actually love the fact that I go to a waitressing job or a bartending job, because I get so much out of it. It gives me so much for my own personality, or I learn so much just dealing with people. Yeah. And being able to connect those conversations, like there's just something that comes from it. So I always say to people, it doesn't have to be both. It doesn't have to be that you have the greatest job. You might have a job that pays your bills, and you might have a side passion. So you can either do it two ways. Your job can become your passion.
Yep.
You're very lucky if it can. Or you sometimes have a great job that maybe pays the bills, that gives you the lifestyle that you want, that makes your wife happy, your kids happy, or your husband happy. And then you have like maybe something that you do on the side. And I think it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like, life isn't black or white. You can do it multiple different ways.
Thank you. And be in gratitude for your choices.
Yes.
People that say, "Oh, I have to do this." No, you don't.
No.
Maybe for now you have to do that.
Right.
But I promise that if we start going another direction, you'll get redirected. Life will work out differently.
Yeah, and you can also say, if you don't like the job you're in and you feel the need that you want to do something that you're more passionate about, then there's nothing wrong with making that jump. And then you can reconfigure your life to work that way. So if you have to simplify to be more happy, great.
Get really clear with it.
If makes more money and you do it on the side, they're both great. I always say that to people. I'm like, I'm not saying that it's not okay to be rich. I'm not saying that you have to be poor. I'm not saying either way. I'm just saying you are your own person, and whichever way it works for you that makes you the happiest, that is what you do.
And that's what me as a coach does for same thing. You should be a coach. Well, you kind of are, Kristen. So, but that's what as a coach. It's like, I'm gonna help you see your path that you want to have, right?
Exactly. And I think one of the things that people have to realize is that there's not, and this is one of the biggest things that I think there's such a pressure, whether it be social media or the way that we present, that there's one story, one way to go. And I've always been someone that likes lefts and rights. I've never been the person that goes, "Oh, right down the middle, we all have to do this because everyone's going this way." I'm like, I want to see what's over here. And I've done that with my son too. And I think that that's what people have to understand. It's okay that you can take a left or a right. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing, because it's kind of crowded. That's why there's a lot of traffic on the highway.
Oh, I love you. And you're never too far down a road that you can't hit the brakes and go, I'm going to turn around and go left. Everybody stays with something. Well, I'm so invested in it now. It's okay. Be invested in it, but turn left and be invested in it. It's not working. You're smacking against a wall. It's okay. Don't quit. Back up, turn around, and go find the right path.
I love that. That's such a great message. God, Samantha, I've had such a blast talking to you. I really feel like, you know, I think if hopefully people got out of this conversation that, like we said, it doesn't have to be one way. There's so many different paths to life. And one of the things I really want out of this show is, like, you know, we stir up the pot and we try to have conversations and share different thoughts and feelings. Let people understand that it doesn't have to be one way. We can have different ideas and different ways to live our life. And it can still be interesting sitting down and having a conversation with somebody. And I think that, you know, from a lot of the life experience that you had, made other people maybe look through things differently, and maybe they're gonna take a chance on something that they were afraid to do it, or maybe a little pivot. And but tell people where they can find the book and find you.
Okay, so the book's called Unstuck Yourself, Unstuck Yourself on You Know What Yourself. It's on Amazon. It's on all your Barnes & Noble, all that stuff in America. And internationally, it's on Amazon.
Okay.
And you can go to my website, which is www.designedlifellc.com. Follow me on Instagram, reach out, we'll hang out, we'll talk. I'm not as much on the Instagram as on the interweb as my friend Kristen, but reach out.
I don't have a website or a book yet, so like,
okay.
Samantha.
Well, reach out and I'll reach back and we'll have some fun. And if I'm not, you know, I'm happy to direct people. How's that? But get the book. Awesome. It's fun. And it's on Audible too if you don't like to read.
Oh, that's even better, because a lot of people like to do the Audible because they're in the car.
Amen.
So, well, that is amazing. So I'm going to say, everybody, thank you so much for joining us for episode 7 of Chicken in the Bag podcast. I will be back next week with Oriana Griever. I can never say her last name, but she is a relationship coach. So we're going to get into relationships and men and women, which should be a lot of fun. I will be back next week. Samantha, thank you so much for joining us. And we will see you.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
This episode of Chicken in a Bag is over. She's got to get back to being a mom, wife, bartender, therapist, comedian, you know, real life stuff. But you can catch more episodes of Kristen being Kristen on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe. Catch you next time.